Welcome back, lovely audience, to another episode of Mind Your Biz Monday. My name is Seth Estrada. I'm your host, as per usual. Tonight, I've got a lineup of some of the freshest news for Bitcoin, Ethereum, other cryptocurrencies that are on the top 10, 15, 25. And I also have an op-ed piece by Greg Almeida, who's become a bit of a personal friend. And he sent this article to me, so I'd like to cover it tonight and then get your take on it. So don't be too off-put by the name of tonight's video. I think, have an agenda tonight, but I do have some content that I want to cover, and I think it's very interesting personally. I think there's a slightly new take on this. Not many people are talking about this publicly. So without further ado, why don't we start by acknowledging our sponsor. As per usual, our sponsor for the night is MineYour.Biz, and specifically MineYour.Biz hats. The hats area of MineYour.Biz is as awesome as ever. We have Monero, we have Bitcoin, we have Zelle merchandise. Of course, the Zelle HODL design is a classic, an instant classic, and a favorite among people who like the Zelle Core ecosystem and who like using Zelle Core as a wallet. As you come in, go ahead and say hello down in the comment section. But as you see right here, all of your favorite hats are available here, all of your favorite projects. We have Haven, we have Monero, we have Ethereum, we have so many others that are available. The Bitcoin HODL as well design. That is a MineYour.Biz original. Nobody else has one quite like that. So you can get these either paying in fiat or paying in cryptocurrency. That's right. You can actually pay in Bitcoin. You can pay in Ethereum or Monero or the cryptocurrency of your choice by using a quick swap exchange like, say, Changely or Shapeshift, and then paying there. So check out our merchandise over on MineYour.Biz. Thank you so much, MineYour.Biz, for sponsoring tonight's show. Let's take a look at CoinGecko. CoinGecko doesn't tell the whole story, but it does tell us quite a bit about where the market has been over the last 24 hours. Bitcoin came so close to breaking that resistance level. Everybody was talking about $14,000 being the main event, right? The big deal. If we broke $14,000 with Bitcoin, then we would race to all-time highs. Let's take a look at Bitcoin in a closer view here, because as we know, where Bitcoin goes, the rest of the altcoin market follows. So we came so close, 13.7. Let's bring it up to the 7-day view here with the peak 13.9. And that hasn't been in the last 24 hours, but 13.9, we got so close to breaking that $14,000 resistance level. And I'm not really sure what happened, to be totally straightforward. I don't pretend to give any kind of financial advice, and I certainly don't pretend to teach anybody technical analysis. In fact, while I got you paying attention to that, let's do a little disclaimer. None of the opinions on this show should be misconstrued as any kind of official advice. If you aren't paying me to give you advice, then I'm not giving you advice. That's the long and the short of it. I do, however, do work for hire. I do contract work, and I do consulting for small to mid-scale mining operations for people who want to get involved in cryptocurrency mining and figure out the best way to scale their operation. So that's not me soliciting your business. That's just to say I've done that in the past. But right now, I'm not offering any advice here with the current markets. Just taking a quick look at it because it informs what we do across the rest of the cryptocurrency scene. So, yep, retracing back from that, 13.9, just couldn't make it, couldn't hack it. $14,000, just didn't quite hit that. Dropped all the way back, almost back to the $13,000 resistance level, and we're recovering from there. So looking at the rest of the cryptocurrency market, gosh, oh, they've got to change this. I don't know what the CoinGecko thinks that does. I don't know what market they're talking to right now, but we're already in November, so no more Halloween stuff, guys. All right, taking a look at Ethereum. I think this is a little bit more relevant to most cryptocurrency miners. And while that's loading up, I'm going to pull up whattomine.com as well, just because it's so relevant to cryptocurrency miners, GPU miners. But Ethereum back down below 385. Ouch. This really hurts, guys. This really, really hurts seeing Ethereum so low. And the last time it was over or nearly $400 was just this morning. Yikes. Guys, what is going on with Ethereum? Why such volatility? Well, we're going to talk about Ethereum in this segment as we go over some of the news. There's been very strong sentiment towards Ethereum, especially for me. I'm a bit of a fan, guys. I don't even pretend. I'm a bit of a fan of Ethereum. I really love the roadmap towards Ethereum 2.0. I really think that there's strong promise there. And I think that if the Ethereum core development team can maintain focus on keeping backwards functionality with all of Ethereum 1.0, the smart contracts and the full ecosystem, but increasing throughput, we're going to see something truly amazing when Ethereum 2.0 comes out. Not phase 0, of course, which introduces only staking, but in the future, as Ethereum 2.0 grows and becomes more robust, I think we're going to see something. Big Crypto Dave in the comment section. Thank you so much for being here, brother. I really appreciate it. He says, Christianity, okay, watches cautiously. Well, I bring that up, Big Crypto Dave, because I think that the op-ed piece that we're going to talk about tonight raises some interesting questions, and it raises them for people who may already be working within a framework of Christian belief. So just, you guys have been warned. If you're watching this and thinking like, well, that's not really my cup of tea. I'm either irreligious or I'm anti-religious, right? Like I'm very much actively trying to tear down people's faith. Maybe it's not the right show for you tonight, and that's okay. Guys, you know that I won't, like for my part, I will always accept you, right? For my part, the door's always open. We're always friends from my end. But tonight I wanted to talk about the writings of a friend of mine who is working within a bit of a fractured framework of faith. And I think that's the case for a lot of people in 2020, not just in 2020 because of the year 2020, but because 2019 was already heading that direction, right? There are times and seasons for certain things. There are trends, macro trends that just affect everybody. And I think that the sort of complication of people's faith has been one of those macro trends that we've seen culturally over the last 10 years, especially, due in no small part to major black swan events like the subprime mortgage, subprime lending crisis of 2008, and seeing so many people's financial fortune take a dive unexpectedly, right? Where they were not directly involved in making any kind of bad decisions, but then all of a sudden, boom, the sky falls, right? Their 401k is worthless. All of their investments are no good. They put $500,000 into a home, an investment property, and all of a sudden they are underwater, right? They just have nothing. And these sorts of things cause people to question a lot. So this is not me trying to preach at anybody. This is me merely covering the op-ed of a friend of mine. So if you're on board with that, guys, then keep an open mind. We'll talk about it. But it does, you might have to suspend your disbelief for a minute to just get into the mode of thinking the way this person is thinking. You've been warned. Okay. So talking about Ethereum, though, guys, this is the main event when it comes to cryptocurrency mining on GPUs, right? Where Ethereum goes, again, the rest of the GPU mineable market, generally speaking, goes as well. There's quite a bit of a moat between Ethereum and every other GPU mineable coin right now. So important to take a look at that. I think that there's more to the story than this, but I want to bring up some news that's directly relevant. On whattomine.com, let's take a look at some profitability right now. Let's look at not the 6900 XT proposed numbers because I don't want to speculate there just yet. I want to get my hands on some data. I don't actually want to get my hands on the cards to test them this time around. Sorry, guys. This has been the case for a while now. I would much rather aggregate the data. Think of me more as like your business intelligence partner when it comes to GPU crypto mining. I'm not gonna create a data flow that is like as intense as like an actuarial table or something that's like super draws on calculus for this spreadsheet over here and then somehow flips it into a tidy little pivot table report for you, with like flowers and little like animations and stuff on another chart. No. But as you know, over the last several years, I have updated the tabs on the GPU mining efficiency spreadsheet for your use. So you can then take that and as a tool, you can refine those numbers and see what works for you. So I'm interested in that when it comes to the 6900 XT. I don't want to do what Bitsby Trippin does. That's not my jam these days. I just don't have the time. So taking a quick look at this though, let's use as a baseline 8 RX 580s. It's a very common configuration, 10 cent power. We'll go ahead and calculate that, flip it into dark mode so we don't continue to go blind here. And it looks like, oh, that's just painful. With ETH hash, we're still only scraping by with Ethereum proper at just under $4 daily profit. That's not a whole lot. When you're looking at less than 50 cents per day per card, not a whole lot. It's hard to make a business case for anybody in terms of purchasing cards right now. Let's take a look at the 5600 XT as well. 8-card rig or 8-card configuration. Hit calculate. And again, we're looking at still not quite $1 per card. And with that 5600 XT, we're looking at an acquisition price, if you're getting them brand new, of somewhere in the vicinity of $250 all the way up to $280 a piece. Now, an 8-card rig, guys, hear me out. Again, I'm always urging caution and averages and probabilities when it comes to purchasing hardware. Anybody who tells you they can get an 8-card rig with every single one of them costing 20 to 40% below MSRP, that's awesome if they've done it. It may not be reproducible for you. Those results are not typical. Most people who are trying to build a large volume rig are buying either from scalpers or mining liquidators, or they're finding some other way to get their hands on large volume orders. So it's not typical. You have to know somebody, you have to really work at it. Or if you're trying to buy piecemeal, 1 card at a time, you simply can't deploy all of this hash rate overnight. So just know, running these numbers here and talking about prices, I'm normally referring to what's available right now, shippable with like Amazon Prime 2-day shipping or free shipping on eBay, or something that's just available with high quantities on Newegg, Micro Center, or other big box retailers. So there you go. Big disclaimer again, right? Didn't run that also? There we go. Cool. Did it again. So jumping back in, looks like even the 5600 XT, which really bumps up the hash rate there, you're getting less than $1 per day per card in profit. Not awesome for GPU mining. It's not awesome, but it's still in the running. And with the 5600 or the 5000 series, you have very few privacy options that are worth pursuing. Most people would view them as not worth pursuing. Other than Beam, it's there in the running, but it's not very high in profit. For one last scenario here, let's go ahead and look at the 2080 on Team Green. And we'll run numbers on the 2080 just so we have a Team Green entry. But I'm just going to say, guys, for the most part, you're still better off getting a 60 variant of whatever Team Green offers when the 3060 rather is officially released. That maybe will be worth it, but in bulk, I don't know who's going to be buying that when AMD is just slaughtering NVIDIA at pricing, right? And availability may also be better. We'll see when that 6000 series is fully released. So let's double check, make sure that our 2080 numbers are coming through. Vorn, good to see you in the comments section. And this is not quite accurate. We don't have fully updated numbers yet. Let me go ahead and refresh this one more time. There we go. No, it's not. It's refusing to refresh. Guys, it's a sign. Time to move on. Thank you so much for smashing like and for sharing the live stream. Thank you so much for being subscribed, guys. It really does mean a lot. All right, so I am not getting this page to force a refresh, which is kind of weird. This doesn't happen all that often, but it's happening tonight. All right, so Ethereum. It makes me bummed out to see Ethereum's pricing kind of low, but let's talk about Ethereum news. Yeah, Vorn, I am not live on Twitch right now. Guys, to give you a heads up right now, I'm reevaluating publishing and publishing goals. I may be going live on Twitch daily in the near future. I haven't made a decision there yet. That's not me committing to it. Potentially live on Twitch daily, Twitch/YouTube daily. And then with the Monday evening show, completely revamping the thought of how I publish. So going live, not almost 8 hours earlier in the day, precisely because I've got viewers in Europe. I've got viewers who are not stateside who are interested in seeing this live, and I love the interaction. I love being able to chat with you guys. So I am considering that. You tell me, this Monday evening time, is it still good? Would it be better earlier in the day? Because I am reevaluating publishing schedule. I'm reevaluating getting things. Wow. Reevaluate. Oh my gosh. I just freaked out. I thought I saw some kind of a notification that said, we're having trouble saving your video. And I'm thinking, what video do you have to save? Yikes. I haven't closed the session yet. But I'm reevaluating the publishing schedule, reevaluating a bit of, not the direction of the channel, of course, but reevaluating a few things as far as publishing goes. So let's go back over into the news for the day. Today, and you see it in the comment or the description of this video, The Ethereum 2.0 testing is to resume so Vorn just, sorry, I'm going to jump back in. Vorn just mentions it's 3 a.m. in certain parts of Europe. So that's part of why I want to go live a bit earlier in the day. I'm asking anybody who's across the pond to stay up late in order to watch this. Anybody who's stateside, sure, it's after working hours, but everybody works from home these days. Everybody works remote these days. So, like, what's the big deal? Why not just, go earlier? So the Beacon Chain launch will near. The Mandala testnet has stalled over recent weeks due to validator inactivity, but things appear to be turning around as the mainnet launch date nears. So the Mandala testnet for Ethereum 2.0 Phase 0 has been offline for several weeks because of validator participation. That's the biggest problem. There needs to be at least 66% participation from validators staking 32 simulated ETH each, and for most of October, it had less than 50%. As testers grew weary waiting the real thing. The real thing. So, guys, here's the thing, man. Blockchain is slow. Software development in general is slow. I mean, if we change this into like video game development, you got people who are upset that say Cyberpunk 2077 is not out yet, right? That video game. But they're still going to wait until it's actually published before they can play it, right? And they get that that's part of the cost of doing business, right? Or so to speak, that you wait for certain things to be developed. So I don't know that I understand what's going on here. It's simulated ETH anyway. It's not the same. But it is resuming. There may be enough validators and the developer stated, unlikely there will be long periods of non-finality on mainnet because there's too much at stake with validators using real ETH. You guys tell me down in the comment section, what do you think of that? Do you think that once Ethereum 2.0 Phase 0 goes live with 32 ETH at stake, do you think that more validators will just say like, oh yeah, I'm in. I'm like, you got me totally involved. Like I'm totally invested. I'm doing this. Or will we see more of the same based on price volatility for Ethereum? Tell me in the comment section, guys. Love to hear from you. Next bit of news is about the Ethereum blockchain being chosen by the Reserve Bank of Australia, or RBA, for issuing its own CBDC, or central bank decentralized currency, or central bank digital currency, rather. Thank you. But the hedge fund manager, this guy, Jeffrey, he says that he sees Bitcoin as an inflation hedge. They had some things to say about Bitcoin that were not super flattering, which is kind of refreshing, to be honest. It's kind of refreshing to hear people in the traditional finance industry say, hey, Bitcoin is nice and all, but we do like other options because it helps to integrate legacy financial systems. Now, that's not me saying that I think that Ethereum is better than Bitcoin, or that I think that whatever Bitcoin Cash is better than Bitcoin Core, or that Bitcoin Core is better than Bitcoin SV. Other than that, Bitcoin SV, there are some problems culturally there in terms of approachability and whatever else. So, but just saying that it's interesting to see that there are government organizations and banks saying, we get Ethereum. That makes sense. It's flexible enough that we understand it. Some may say it's too censorable and that's why they like it. So I don't know. You tell me. What do you think of that? Financial institutions choosing Ethereum to create CBDCs and other financial instruments. But they like it. They like it. He said that Bitcoin and gold are capable of protecting investors against inflation. But it's interesting. Right here, this is the quote. Bitcoin is still a lie, air quotes, a lie. He dismissed it as a lie in his October interview with Business Insider. He criticized the flagship crypto for its lack of anonymity. I prefer things that I can put in the trunk of my car. I prefer my Mondrian on the wall to a digital entry that has the same value. So kind of interesting. Kind of an interesting take on it. I thought, so Big Crypto Dave, he mentions too often the opinions of financial institutions are trying to manipulate you, not inform you. And I agree with that. You know I agree with that. I am fairly anti-central bank and fairly anti-centralized authority, specifically, and custodianship. I think that when we rush too quickly into saying like, oh, but think of the people who are unable to take care of their own crypto, then we wind up picking very poor custodians who wind up being as abusive as the previous custodians. And central banks in particular have proven repeatedly that they receive bailouts. Like they receive, it's like receiving a promotion for bad behavior at work instead of getting fired like anybody else would if they whatever, slapped a customer in the face. And these banks, they slap their customers in the face and they go to the Fed and they go to the federal government and they say, help us out. And they get help. And they've done it before and they'll do it again. They'll do it as many times as they receive bailouts, right? There's conditioning going on there. So I'm with you. I inherently do not trust central banks, and even credit unions they're part of that FDIC system in which they're incentivized to do kind of the same practices and exercise a similar level of censorship. So it is a bit of a problem. What I was not expecting to hear from this banker was that they said that it wasn't anonymous enough. Like their criticism of Bitcoin was that it wasn't anonymous. That's why they called it a lie. Like that's new to me to hear a banker say, oh yeah, Bitcoin isn't anonymous enough. And I'm like, wait a second. This guy's making sense. Like I think Bitcoin isn't anonymous enough either. I'm a rather Monero maximalist, quite a bit of a Monero maximalist because of this, right? Even though Monero's privacy isn't perfect. It's a lot like PGP, right? Pretty good privacy. I wish they could have called it PGP coin. It would have been awesome. But Monero stuck. So, but it's not perfect privacy. It's just good enough most of the time. It's quite good privacy and good enough. So interesting that, that would be his take on it, that it's not anonymous enough because it's so traceable. Yet ironically saying, yeah, but I love Ethereum. Right? Womp womp. I don't get the logic there. I just don't understand. So kind of an interesting take on it. Very interesting take, but this is the sort of take of an insider, somebody who's like really making some decisions based on some reading. Vorn says ETH has so much more potential than Bitcoin. And I think you're probably right. Ethereum does have more potential than BTC in terms of its flexibility, right? It's a much more plastic substrate than Bitcoin is right now. There's omni-layer protocol, and yes, smart contracts can be written up on Bitcoin right now. But when people talk about, like Michael Saylor talks about, like, oh, throughput doesn't matter. I want it to be slow and expensive. I don't care if it costs $50 for me to send $100 million. Michael, if you ever wind up watching this segment, I really appreciate your influence on the industry so far, but you're selling out of your own pocket, right? You're selling Bitcoin out of your own pocket. So as long as you're only talking to people who reflect you as a customer persona, then fine. But not everybody who has a potential interest in an uncensorable currency like Bitcoin will look like you. So not everyone in Bitcoin is going to be doing $100 million transfers and saying like, oh, $50 in fees, who cares? Right? They they light $100 bill on fire to light their cigar, right? That's what Michael Saylor comes off as when he says something like that, right? Doesn't he? He's like the Monopoly man, right? Little monocle. It just doesn't seem right. Doesn't seem right at all. So I agree. Ethereum is a much more plastic substrate, and Bitcoin can do a lot of stuff, but throughput does matter. Low fees do matter. Balancing the system and the incentives between fees and the participation of proof of work miners, all of that matters. It really does. There needs to be throughput. And even if that means there are second layer solutions that carry with them higher privacy and anonymity tools, then so be it. But I think that Michael Saylor gets it wrong when he says that Bitcoin can do everything that we possibly need. And I think that Vorn right here in the comment section is getting it right. Ethereum is still inherently useful. Otherwise, why would every single large-scale stablecoin be built on it? Why wouldn't they go somewhere else, right? He says ETH is cheap measured in Bitcoin, where the pre-phase 0 pump. This is more potential just in terms of the previous all-time high. Yeah, totally agreed. Though, yeah, we'll get to that in just a second. He says ETH should be 2x just to catch up with 2017 relation to Bitcoin. I think that's probably true, but I think that we're running into serious difficulties with investor, air quotes, investor confidence, right? People who, like right now on the test net, who are not playing the game, right, to be proper validators. And that's a bit of an issue. A bit of an issue when it's funny money, so to speak, when these aren't even real ETH that they should be staking in order to be validators on the testnet. What's going on there? Why is that not happening? Where's the disconnect? Like, I wish that the ETH ecosystem would just like get its act together, because I'm with you. Conceptually, I want for Ethereum I want it to reach that gold ring. I want it to get it, right? I want it to go past 2017 all-time high. I want it to do that 10x, because it probably has a 10x in it, right? That could totally happen. Why isn't it moving, right? It's like you're poking a dead dog with a stick. It's like, come on, get back up, boy. And that's Ethereum right now. And I don't get it. That shouldn't be the case, right? It's got so much promise. It is such a pliable and plastic code base and platform. We should be able to make it do much more. And it seems like there are a lot of people who are investing in it with maybe the intent of becoming validators, right? By staking 32 ETH, that there shouldn't be a problem, right now. And we've got the stable coins moving on it. We've got Uniswap kicking butt on it right now, right? With more volume than Coinbase. So I don't really know what's going on there. And I wish I could wrap my head around all the factors that affect that. I don't pretend to, right? I just don't think that I understand enough to be able to know why it's not moving the way it should. Because I'm with you. I think it's probably undervalued as it is currently. And when you consider where it could go, it's probably undervalued. But then you get these tiny little reminders of like, oh, well, it's not really on track, is it? It's kind of on track, but it's not really on track. Because if it were on track, some other things would be built already. Maybe it's going to be up to third parties like Matic. Maybe it's going to be up to third parties that are already building second layer solutions, and or Cosmos, right, and others. Maybe it's entirely going to be their game. Maybe ETH 2.0 is not going to be as important or as relevant as these second layer solutions that build on ETH 1.0 and only use ETH 1.0 as a settlement layer. Maybe. I don't know. I don't pretend to have a whole lot of insight there. But just funny that this bank is saying Bitcoin is a lie. They also, going back in time, they not that long ago said they didn't need a central bank cryptocurrency. So yeah, like Big Crypto Dave is saying, they're kind of talking out of both sides of their face. That's a little bit disconcerting as well for them to do that about face so quickly, right? To go from saying, well, we don't need a CBDC to saying like, oh yeah, we need a CBDC. Bitcoin is a lie. We're using Ethereum. It is a little bit suspect, right? It makes you wonder like, oh, is Ethereum really safe? Guys, thanks so much for tuning in, by the way. To anybody who's here, thanks for smashing that like, sharing the link. Thanks you so much for asking relevant questions as well. It means a lot. So, yeah, just very interesting. The same bank said they didn't see the need for a central bank cryptocurrency. And last bit of news, ETH 2.0 devs say they're ready to pull the trigger on everything. And I mean everything. They're ready to pull the trigger on everything. So the latest blog post from consensus developer Ben Edgington suggests that things are getting very close to the highly anticipated launch of phase 0 of Ethereum 2.0. You got to love that there's developers that are doing this too, that are naming this, because it's phase 0, right? It's not phase 1, phase 0. That's how you know a developer did it, right? If it were a marketer that'd say like, no, guys, it's just phase 1. All the normies want to hear you call it phase 1. Just call it phase 1. But there are no marketers in the group, right? So they're all just geeks. Said like, no, it's phase 0. Got to start from 0 because that's the absolute beginning of the list. And hey, I can't blame them. It's what I would do too, because it's like, well, we're trying to be very, very, very. You're trying to do this by the book. Let's document this the right way. But they probably need a marketer too, somewhere in the Ethereum group. Somebody that's got a little more street smarts. So Ethereum, going to phase 0 of 2.0 of Ethereum 2.0. So the first part of this milestone event is the deployment of the deposit contract, which has already been slightly delayed as developers want to wait for an audit on a performance and security-focused signature library called BLST. BLST. He says that the results of this are expected this week, although there are still a few rough edges and improvements to be made. And his direct quote is, the important thing is, as Danny reported on this week's dev call, that the audit is going well. Results are expected next week, And then we can, air quotes, pull the trigger on everything. No tricks, but plenty of treats. Your latest bumper edition of What's New in ETH2 is out. Wait a second. What? Find out if I'm foolish enough to predict the date of the deposit contract deployment. Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. So, yeah, he is also being very clear that guys, it's like video game development, right? Or the way it's become now. It's just released when it's ready. It's released when it's ready, but they are closer than ever. I'm confident they're going to release Ethereum 2.0 and that phase 0 will be available soon. You tell me in the comments, where is your confidence in Ethereum 2.0 or your Ethereum in general? Are you not a fan? Are you a fan? Do you think it's going to happen this year for sure? Definitely in 2020. Do you think it's going to happen this month in November that we'll see Ethereum 2.0 test, not just test the test net, but mainnet for phase 0 roll out? I'm basing my opinion on everything that we see here and just going to say probably. I think we probably are going to see it go live, personally. But don't quote me. This isn't advice. All right, let's jump into the main conversation here, guys. This is an article called Jesus and the Blockchain. And again, you were warned, guys. You were warned. This is an op-ed piece from a friend of mine named Greg Almeida. And this is his publication on Medium. But his core question, right, is do technology and God collide? Now, you can try to do a mic drop and just say, no, yes, they do. They collide. That's a problem. There's no reconciling them. Well, guys, that's all right. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. And at least everybody has an opinion, one opinion that's unpopular, right? If we talk for longer than 5 minutes in a private conversation, you'll discover something about me that you think that you discover is an unpopular opinion. And I'll discover something about you that most people would consider an unpopular opinion. We can't please everyone all the time. So do keep an open mind and just consider that this person is writing this from a place of fragile faith. He's not trying to proselytize. He's not trying to convert you. Neither am I. This is just something that he wrote. All right. So awesome. Big Crypto Dave is jumping back to the question of Ethereum 2.0, and he says, cautiously optimistic that we'll see phase 0 in the next 3 to 6 months. All right. And thank you, Nemesis, for jumping in. Good to see you. All right. And he says, I'm assuming that I'm not much different than most of you. There are questions about our existence that do not have the answers that many of us can readily accept. Either this existence we call life is due to sheer luck, and everything we know to be true has been the culmination of luck driving luck with a random number generator, or we are created and there is a God watching over us. Now, I think there are plenty of people who believe that there are options C, D, E, F, G, etc., and that there are so many other potential explanations here. But go ahead and forgive Greg, as I do, for him wanting to reduce it down to 2 possible options just for the sake of quickly getting to his point of view, which is, in his worldview, he's entertaining the notion and the possibility that there is a divine creator that has staged everything, right, that we experience. And he says, before I begin to delve into the topic at hand, first a little background about me is pertinent so that the reader might have a better understanding. I was raised a Christian. Again, guys, be patient with the guy because he may have a different upbringing than you, may have a different path than you. He says, a Seventh-day Adventist to be exact. I was very active in the church in my younger years, becoming a deacon at age 13. For a short period of time, even studied to become a pastor. Around my coming of age, became more worldly and eschewed my religious upbringing, dabbled in drugs, went to raves, expanded my consciousness. I ended up paying a price for my actions and learned a hard lesson about people and life in the process. I finished paying my debt to society and went on to build several companies. Now, when I first met Greg, he was focused on a company that was reconditioning shipping containers for all kinds of stuff. Shipping containers for homes, shipping containers also, of course, for mining, so that they were ready. And then was very deep into the GPU mining scene and got into the FPGA mining scene where he's still somewhat active. So pretty cool stuff. Pretty darn cool stuff. And really appreciate the stuff that he's worked on in that space. He's been a relatively successful miner, right? As so many have been. So just so you know, that's how I met him. And let's see. Said, I've been an IT consultant for small to medium-sized businesses, and then for a decade, I owned and operated an automotive performance shop. In 2017, I became interested in blockchain technology because Bitcoin exploded in value and put itself on my map. 2019 is the year where this topic of religion and technology began to percolate in my mind, my brain. You see, I'm a pretty quick study and became part of a coin project about a year after getting into crypto. The project I'm associated with is called Swap, and you can read about it more at xwp.one. For the record, guys, I am not a supporter of the Swap project. I'm not a detractor either, right? I don't mean to be a net detractor at all. If you follow my content, you know I haven't interviewed anybody from the Swap team. I have nothing against them per se. I'll say that when I did reach out to them, though, I was rejected. I was soundly rejected by their core developer, by their lead developer. So they just didn't want any attention, and I offered it for free, just a public chat, but that didn't work out. So, and I remember Greg reaching out to me and saying, "You should cover it. You should give it more coverage." You know, everybody's always asking, right? I was caging for more free attention, but that was his deal at the time. He said, June of last year, magic happened. We were mortally wounded because our main dev went AWOL on us, but those of us who were the core of the team pulled together and managed not only to keep the ship from smashing itself into rocks, but we picked up steam and had a nice cruise. During that time, I began to have what I can only describe as thoughts that were not my own. Ideas and correlations between blockchain technology and religious ideals / God started becoming evident to me. And you know, you'll occasionally hear this sort of thing with people who are steeped in religious thought, especially people who've like studied to engage in the work of the ministry, right? People who've gone on to get a doctor of, you know, the doctorate of divinity, or, you know, an advanced credential, or to become men and women of the cloth, so to speak. You'll hear people talk about correlations coming to their minds, almost as though it is somebody else putting them there, as though they're divinely inspired. So this is not a strange thing, not a strange phenomenon. And what I will say also is that I don't think we should be so quick to say it's some kind of a mental illness either, because I have seen some people who are very quick to say, well, that's schizophrenia, but it's not schizophrenia per se. Gundy's stuff and things. Thank you for saying hello down in the comment section. Good to see you. So let's just be very cautious, guys. Just because somebody has started to expand their consciousness in a way that they think is influenced by the divine doesn't necessarily mean that they have mental illness. When they say they start hearing voices that are uncontrollable and they're telling them to do terrible things, that's textbook. There are textbook problems with that. That's not what he's describing here, though. Okay, so I'm imploring you to extend a little bit of charity to the account that Greg is giving here. So he says, I was raised in a very religious household, but over the last 2 decades, living life has changed many of my thoughts on the matter of God. The last year has once again reformed my thoughts. I do not want to attempt to trivialize the concept of God. However, it became apparent to me that ultimately, a major difference between humans and God ultimately lies in the technology at our disposal. I want to take you back to the Dark Ages, to a time where science and knowledge were lost to a great degree. People who had learned that mixing certain compounds together would cause certain reactions were lauded as magicians, when they were nothing more than what we would call a chemist today. However, because the knowledge they possessed was not shared by the general population, their actions were magical. Ultimately, there was simply just a technological gap between those who knew and those who did not. A magic trick isn't magic anymore once you know the secret. Much in the same way, we are told that God has amazing powers. He is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. And just, guys, brief primer, if anybody doesn't know the lingo there, omnipotent just means all-powerful. Omniscient means all-knowing. And all-present means all-present, right? Present in every place simultaneously, or capable of being present in all places simultaneously, for anybody who's not familiar with those words. We're told of God raising people from the dead, and that all that we know was created by him. These powers seem mystical because we do not possess them, nor can we understand how this could be. However, science, and more importantly, computer technology, specifically blockchain technology, can help illuminate many of these things and bring about a greater understanding of God. And guys, again, I don't think he's actually trying to preach to you or to me. And just to be clear, me covering this tonight is not me trying to preach to you either. Greg forwarded it to me and asked me for some feedback. And, I rather enjoyed it. I thought it was an interesting op-ed. So that's why I'm covering it tonight. He says, on August 25th of 2019, my younger brother was killed in a motorcycle accident. He was the victim of another's stupidity. This devastated me. I was so indescribably lost and confused. I was literally being torn asunder as I tried to come to grips with this horrible tragedy. So much in the world conflicts with the stories I was told as a child. I would like to believe that science is something I can believe in. There is much in the scientific world that makes the stories I learned growing up seem to be just that, stories with no real validity. The loss of my brother turned me upside down and forced me to reevaluate all that I believe in. I do not wish my experience upon anyone, for it's horrible to grapple with existential questions about our existence while dealing with the pain of such great loss. It took seeing a therapist for me to finally understand that what was tearing me apart was my heart's desire to believe in God and my brain telling me that science casts much doubt on the existence of God. While my battle is not yet over, I do believe that the tide has turned. I do believe in God. I believe that some of the secrets of his powers are on display right before us. I believe that blockchain technology is a God-like technology, and I will explain how. The Bible tells us of a book in heaven that records the names and deeds of those who shall enter the kingdom of heaven. I am a firm believer that you must teach according to your audience and what they know. 2,000 years ago, there were no computers. Books as we know them did not exist, and the papyrus scroll was the cutting-edge technology of the day. If we were to literally take the Bible at face value when it describes the book of life, we must imagine a massive book, or in this case, scroll, too large to even comprehend when we consider the number of humans who have walked on this planet. Now, what I'm going to say really quickly is about 15% of all humans who ever lived are alive today, so roughly 8 billion. So I don't see. I'm trying to think really quickly. I want to say that puts us in the vicinity of somewhere around 42 billion humans ever that we can calculate have existed. At least Homo sapiens developed as we're developed. So a lot of people, though, right? A lot of people. And I don't begrudge Greg for not knowing that number or not doing the math, but tens of billions of people have lived on the world. And he says, consider the number of humans who have walked on this planet. That book doesn't look so big when we consider that all information could be stored digitally, a concept totally alien and foreign to humans that walked on this earth 2,000 years ago. Blockchain technology is a relatively recent invention. It required several other technologies to be invented and perfected first. The simplest explanation I can give you as to what blockchain is would be the following. Blockchain is a database where the inputs to the database happen in blocks that occur at some fixed interval of time. You guys hear me say on the show very often that blockchain, for all that it's not good at, it is really good at one thing, and that's time stamping, right? It's really, really good at saying such and such happened at this time. These blocks are added together, forming a chain where prior blocks are immutable and cannot be edited. Also, blockchain is also, to some people, known as just a write-only database, or rather a read-only database. There are no rewrites. Prior blocks are immutable, cannot be edited. You can only add new data in successive blocks. Blockchain is by default a network-enabled technology, and there are nodes on the network that validate transactions. These nodes also perform the important task of being the mechanism for decentralized consensus, which is how blocks are confirmed for addition to the chain, as a majority of nodes need to agree before the data is recorded. It is estimated that by 2025, we will have created more than 175 zettabytes of data. That is enough data that if you were to store it on DVDs, your stack of DVDs would be long enough to circle the Earth 22 times. What is a zettabyte? It's 1,000 exabytes. And an exabyte is 1,000 petabytes, and a petabyte is 1,000 gigabytes. And as you know, 1 gigabyte is 1,000 megabytes, and 1 megabyte is 1,000 kilobytes, and 1 kilobyte is 1,000 bytes. That's a whopping number of bytes. says Greg. So what does this all have to do with the Book of Life? Well, all of a sudden, storing all the data created by all the humans who have walked on this earth doesn't seem so radical anymore. Now, does it? Now, what I'll say is if you even just journaled a day in the life of every human, and we'll just, for simple math, we'll say it's 50 billion humans, or Homo sapiens, if you want to just measure that, if that's easier to reconcile intellectually. But 50 billion humans journaling a day in the life, a page a day for an average of 72 years. And let me go ahead and I'm going to run this real fast. So Greg, if you're watching, this is me journaling. So 72 years times 365. So we're looking at 26,280 entries, roughly. Got that calculator up. So it's 26,280 entries times 50 billion. All right, we have a number. And if each one of these pages was plain text, right? A plain text file, just describing in some detail some of the most salient points, we can imagine it, right? We can enumerate the number of pages it would take to have all of humanity to date, all of humanity that has ever lived and has ever died, all of humanity's days journaled and counted, numbered, and having the most remarkable events chronicled by having a page per day per human from birth to death. This is the number of pages, and we can assign a specific data value there, right, in kilobytes. And anybody watching, be relatively few kilobytes. It could be whittled down to bytes in plain text, depending on how we do it. So he says, all of a sudden, storing all the data created by all the humans who have walked on this earth doesn't seem so radical now, does it? You just need to have enough digital data storage. But this isn't really anything radical. The stuff that starts to make you really think is when you start to think of a particular function that is built into blockchain technology. There is a function whose purpose is to restore an inoperable chain. This function is known as restore block height. What this effectively does is take a chain that has stopped operating for whatever reason and get it running again from X point in time defined by the particular block you select. This basically allows you to take the software and put it in a new host or hardware. Did this also just explain resurrection? Now, let me just be very clear. For anybody who isn't steeped in Judeo-Christian faith, or specifically isn't steeped in Christian ideology or Christian teaching, there's this concept of the resurrection, where when Jesus comes again, that people who have died will be brought back, not like zombies, but brought back to vitality, right? Brought back to being fully alive. So that's what he's referring to here. For anybody who maybe isn't familiar with this. And so he's sort of drawing a similarity between the restore block height function of blockchain to a form of sort of a bit of a form of resurrection, right? But it's specific to blockchain technology. Let's be very clear. But he's saying, does that seem so strange? If you can encode so much about a given human into an ongoing book of life that has enough storage to be able to know enough about this person to then restore that block height. So he says, does this also just explain resurrection? Let us take the not so bold assumption that God is vastly technologically superior to us. And I'll opine on this blog post in just a minute here, guys. I've been trying to add some flavor to it and add some texture and depth to it, but I'll give my own opinions here in just a little while. But he says, let's just assume God is vastly technologically superior to humans. We are, for all intents and purposes, a collection of data. Our entire existence, our consciousness, everything we are, think, say, and do is based upon our experiences that have been recorded in our brain in a capacity that we still do not understand. Is it so far-fetched to believe that God has the capability of recording all of this data from billions and billions of humans? If you look at every interaction you make as a transaction, doesn't it seem quite easy to be able to store the sum of you? The Bible tells us that when Jesus comes again, the dead in Christ shall rise up and be given a new host. We're to receive a new body, free from the ravages of sin. And I'll just try to clarify, just made better, right? So better physical host than what we have right now, right? That's the idea that's being portrayed in those scriptures. He says God is simply executing a command in his supercomputer. My brother's last block was on August 25th, 2009, sometime after 12 p.m. God just has to boot Jeff's shiny new host derived from the stored code called DNA and then wirelessly restore his database up to the last known good block. Is this my hope? You betcha. Call me weak if you will, but I refuse to believe this existence is all there is. There is something I just can't scratch. And let's face it, the alternative to God and Jesus sucks. Well, guys, remember this is op-ed, so this is not me necessarily endorsing it, but I do feel for Greg's loss here, and I understand the sentiment. He says another correlation I would like to point out is that in order for blockchain to work, there has to be a means of consensus. You can't have consensus unless there is a protocol to follow so that everyone can play by the same rules. God gave Moses a means for humans to have consensus. There are 10 rules that, if followed, would foster peace and cooperation amongst us humans no matter who you are or where you lived. I mean, seriously, don't steal, don't sleep with another guy's wife, don't lust after other stuff, don't kill. These 10 commandments given to us by God are his protocols for us, designed to keep the human network moving smoothly and keep us in consensus. We just need to look around us in our modern times to see what the lack of abiding by these rules has done to our societies. Considering I also associate myself with the SDA beliefs, Seventh-day Adventist beliefs, I would be negligent if I didn't mention that there are 10 commandments, not 9. The fourth one is important too, and most Christians don't even know they are breaking it. Not that I'm trying to point fingers; I'm guilty too. It's just kind of funny again. So, it's like altcoin debates. He says it's easy to try and dismiss God. It's easy to get wrapped up in life with all the modern conveniences and difficulties. Look at the world around you. Do you really think that we are simply a mathematical statistic based on percentages? Do you feel that there is something more? I chose to believe that there is more than meets the eye. Realize that God is alien. By definition, right? We do not know the form or details. They honestly don't really matter. Someone simply exists that has far more knowledge and data and tech than us. Magical being or just many evolutionary steps ahead of us? I guess it's all about your perspective, but regardless, still real. And this is in his words, and dedicated to his brother, Jeffrey Almeida. And there's a photo of his brother. So I'll just go ahead and give that a little bit of screen time. So guys, I really appreciated this take. I really did. I thought it was thoughtful. I believe it's a thoughtful take on trying to resolve some lingering concerns that he has about his faith being dormant and kind of being awoken by the sudden passing of his brother, and then taking what he's learned about blockchain, having been a person who worked in IT for some time, but not really, for him, not really being maybe aware of or being hands-on with read-only databases, a la blockchain, or add-only databases, a la blockchain. So this was an interesting one for me. what I'll say is, for me, guys, this really spoke to me on a couple of levels. And again, this is not me trying to preach to you. It tells me that there are still people who are questioning, right? And still saying, like, you know what? I was taught certain things when I was younger. I'm not really sure. Or I feel like for certain teachings when I was younger, certain teachings are just like, I cannot reconcile them because the world has taught me something so vastly different that I can't return to to my upbringing. I worry that a lot of people throw the baby out with the bathwater. And maybe that's why I wanted to share this tonight. Not because I wanted to try to preach at anybody one specific philosophy or ideology. Yes, we're talking about Christianity tonight. That's what I know, and it's what Greg knows. But I'm not trying to proselytize or convert anybody or whatever, or preach at anybody. But I just think it was really interesting. Somebody who just said, like, hey, a life event kind of was thrown at me that nothing else gives me answers for, that nothing else gives me a meaningful lens to look through and interpret. So I really appreciated that he was returning to some of those childhood teachings and then saying, like, what about some of the new knowledge that I've gained within this space? Is there a new synthesized worldview that I can take? I really appreciated that, guys. I really, really did. So without getting too deep into the category, the territory of preaching, guys, I think that Greg gives a really great example of how to take some of the old world beliefs and say, and question through a lens of faith, right? Not question through a lens of undue pessimism and doubt, but just say, how could this be true? Instead of like, that's not true, or all of this is fake, or all of this is a system of control, man-made, contrived, strictly to try to control women, strictly contrived to control property rights, strictly contrived to control voting rights of people within a specific area, strictly contrived to control, so on and so forth, right? There's a lot of, especially when it comes to the influence of the Vatican, a lot of people get really up in arms. And, I think I get that. I think that in some cases that questioning is, maybe it's earned, right? In how close church and state have been over the centuries. So that's really difficult for a lot of people to resolve. But I really appreciate Greg's take on just saying, like, there are some things that in his mind, for him, he's clearly is saying, well, my heart and my mind don't feel like they're at odds right now. They don't feel like they're battling each other right now. Like my heart and my brain can communicate, and I can give a name to some of this stuff, and I can identify and maybe even, explain. Now, it's an interesting tautology, right? Being able to say, like, oh, well, I'm starting from a place of faith, and specifically Christian faith, ergo, like, everything becomes an explanation that serves that underlying, like, oh, because God or because Jesus. That may come across as oversimplified. And that's not what I'm urging anybody tonight. I don't know. I was really touched by what Greg wrote and thought, without being an overly simplistic tautology, right? Or a self-serving, like a solipsis, right? Like without getting into solipsism. I think that most people can go back to some of the teachings of the youth and just say, all right, how do I synthesize something new based on what I've seen so far? Sir Francis Bacon said, and I'm going to paraphrase, but he famously said that a little knowledge will bring a man away from God, but a lot will bring him back again. That's my thought for the night, guys. Thank you so much for being tuned in. Thank you so much for hitting that subscribe button. Or, I get the sense some of you are going to be like, you know what? That's not the button I'm hitting right now, Seth. It's going to be more like this. It's going to be more like unsubscribe and I hate your face and don't do this ever again. I'm not here to cramp your style, but I am here to, guys, I'm always here to challenge the status quo just a little bit. So if you haven't thought meaningfully, really delved, or even just meditated, right? And thought like, can I challenge my newer assumptions? Can I maybe use the specific knowledge that was handed to me, or rather the ancient wisdom that was handed to me by my parents, by my community, et cetera, and can I match it with a new understanding of the world and of tech and of best practices? And can I maybe synthesize something new and maybe even more powerful that would please my ancestors, so to speak, or that would help build common ground with other people and do so in a way that builds optimism? And again, I should have just ended it on the Francis Bacon quote. Guys, thanks for tuning into the end. I love your face, and I will see you in the next one.